Okay, so this is going to be kind of a fun little beginner's project. If you did the mug, we did a video where we show you how to throw a mug. This kind of builds off that. So this would be the next kind of step up. Something kind of fun to make. We're going to make something round. So we're going to add some water. We do something slightly different this time. I'm going to cone. I'm going to bring my hand to the front. Increase my wheel speed. And do it again. And when I cone, I kind of scoop palm up to get it started. And once I get some height out of it, I just tip it forward to bring it back down. Now I'm going to my regular centering. Drag off that excess clay. Aggressively moving it around. And remember, when we talked before when we did the mug, about not pushing away from your body. Keep it locked in. There we go. Now to open. We've got it centered. We're going to drop our thumbs in. Check it. Make sure it's in the middle. And then I'll drop down again. Bring my thumbs out slowly. Now my wheel speed that time was fast, which is okay. You can kind of pick the wheel speed you're most comfortable with. Most people kind of go for medium. That's my thickness, and that's good. That's the minimum, which is perfect for what I'm making. Okay, let's add a little water. And now I'm going to pull back, and I'm pulling back with my fingertips. And I'm going to open it out to about where I did for that mug. So I've got it opened about this far. Now I'm going to notch down here. Raise my chair slightly. Add a little water. And I'm going to raise, and I'm going to do that knuckle pull that I did earlier. I'm going to get a lot of surface on here. And I'm really going to push towards the middle. Inside hand is going to just have light pressure against the clay wall. And look at my pace. Again, slow and steady. At the top, we'll compress if it gets uneven at all. Add a little water. Take this away. Really focus on your pace. Get a good push. And climb. Clean this off. This time I'll do fingertips. Just to show you this again. So I'm going to go 3 fingertips. My bottom finger is going to push in first. And then all 3 fingers will try to evenly push up and through. There we go. Take a little bit of this clay away. And I take this away each time because it makes it easier to grab on. This clay tends to plane out a little bit at the bottom, and I don't want to ride up on it. I want to get right in here every time. So I just take a little bit away. Add a little water. Go back to my knuckle pull. Pushing out slightly this time. And coming through, and I'm going to stop about halfway. I'm going to notch. I'm going to go back to the bottom. I'm going to push out again. My outside hand is just trying to be really steady, but it's allowing that clay to come out. There we go. So right now we've got kind of an attractive sort of mug here. This is a good starting point. Let's take this water out. As your pots get taller, you'll be able to get a sponge that's attached to a stick to stick them in to get to the bottom. But for now, regular sponge will probably work well for you. Okay, now I'm going to push out. Outside hand super steady. Keep pushing out. Go back to the bottom, and I'm going to do it again, just very gentle. That push out is just ever so slight. In my outside hand, I'm not worried about keeping a lot of surface on here. All I'm trying to do is control how far out it comes. And I can use fingertips, I could use one finger, two fingers, I could use my knuckle pull. It doesn't really matter. So we've kind of gone back into that mug shape that we made before. We've got this nice belly. What we're going to do differently this time is what we do to the top. So instead of flaring out to make a rim that you can drink out of, we're going to roll it in. So get your hands really, really wet and make sure the clay is really wet. If it feels dry at all, take a minute, just roll it down your hand. Be sure to look on the inside. This is the last chance you get to get water out of here, one of the last. So go ahead and take any water that's in there out. If you leave that water inside, it's going to crack the bottom. We don't want that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start actually in the middle of the curve. I'm going to use my second finger and my thumb. And I'm going to come up through the pot, squeezing as I do. And I want to just gently go onto the clay. And I'm barely squeezing it all now. And now I start to increase my pressure a little bit. And I continue to work my way up. And I'm using my thumb to kind of push here at the end of that. Now what happens when we bring clay in? It gets thicker. When you stretch clay out, when you make it a wide bowl, it gets thinner the wider it gets. But you bring it in, it gets thicker. And it's difficult for clay when it comes in, because as it gets thicker, it's hard for it to stay really even as it comes in, as it gets thicker. So sometimes it'll start to kind of torque a little bit. So you always want to feel for that. And it's probably going to happen on every one you do. So anticipate it. And when it does happen, just put a finger on the inside, finger on the outside, push a little bit on the outside finger, pushing the clay onto the inside finger. So what have we done there? We've essentially done a raise, but we've done it with two fingers. And we've just thinned this clay out ever so slightly. Now I'm going to add a little water. And I'm going to collar back in again. Okay, this is great actually. Not a great throw, but I get to show you how to fix that. So when I squeezed in, it just torqued. And when it did, it buckled. And that's okay. What you want to do is bring your fingers inside and lift. And at the same time that you're lifting, I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure here on the outside. And we're just doing a little raise again to straighten it out. And let's come through again. And through again. Now if this happens to you, once you've straightened it out, I want you to walk away for a while and let this dry a little bit. If it stiffens up, that point, the weakest point where it twisted, will get a little bit stronger, and then you'll be able to torque on it a little bit harder. I'm just going to keep going here and see if I can bring it in. I'll pay attention a little bit better, and let's just see if I can get her to come in without doing it again. I'm going to put a finger in here, and I'm going to kind of bring this over the edge a little bit. And by that I mean I'm going to roll the outside finger over the inside finger, which isn't moving, pushing that clay over the tip of my finger. When I talked about walking away, anytime you're throwing a pot and there's something going on where you go, okay, I've created a lot of stress on this piece. take a break when that happens. When you know that you've got some section that's really kind of about as thin as it can go, and if you put too much pressure above it, the pot's going to start to get out of control. Take a break. Take it off, set it off to the side, start throwing something else. Or do what I do, go eat your lunch, come back, and then finish the throw. 20 minutes of this turning on the wheel, or even a giant piece turning on the wheel, makes a huge difference on how strong it is, because it just stiffens up as that some of that water evaporates. It gets a little stronger, a little stiffer, and you can go back to being quite aggressive. Whereas if you had continued on when it was soft, it would have been much harder to keep going. So not a problem, it's just a strategy, and it's a good one. I've seen potters work on 5 pots at the same time, where they get them started, and then they set them aside, and then they go to the next one. And they just keep doing that because they're throwing shapes that they know create a great deal of stress on the form, on the clay itself, because the form comes in so far, and then it's asked to go this way, so they'll just start it. They start that belly, and they set it aside. They go and throw the next one. Get that belly going, set it aside. And when they get to the end, they go back to the first one now, and now they work on the top half, knowing that that curve is going to be much stronger. I'm being really gentle on this because we've already had it fold once, so we know it's a little bit cranky to begin with. I probably should have left the walls a little bit thicker when I first threw it. And I've begun rolling the top over. Now I'm going to go back to here and bring it in. Let's see what happens. This is where it's most fragile. It's most cranky. And it doesn't like this much, but it is doing it so far. So good. Kind of fun. Just going back and forth, collaring and thinning. I get asked a lot, at the top of my pieces, a lot of times I will do another smaller kind of round shape at the top. And they're like, well, how do you do that? And really, it's exactly the same as what I'm doing right here. It's just on top of more clay. So I've got a big pot, but at the top there's this sort of circle high up after this big belly. It's exactly the same throw. Here we go. So this one has been cranky right through here all along, ever since that twist. And again, if I'd been really smart, I would have left just a little bit more clay instead of thinning it out quite so much to begin with. To be honest, I didn't think it would torque. It did, and that was probably good because you got to see how to fix it, and that is going to happen to you. Those torquing situations do occur. The pot does want to sit when that happens, so it's good to see how to lift and narrow. How fun is that? So a whole lot of patience when you make round shapes. I've really taken my time. Could I have been more aggressive? Well, yeah, if it had been a little stiffer. Um, but as soon as we saw the torquing, that was no longer on the table, and I really just needed to be gentle all the way. So here we've got it down to just a tiny little hole, which I can do. I can clean that up a little bit with my needle simply by pushing out, or I could cut the very top off if I wanted to, just depending on what I want it to look like. And there's a million ways we could finish this. We could add lines, we could leave it the way it is, we could bring it in even more and turn it up into a bottle, but I think I'm going to save the bottle for a different throw. I think this is a good one to work on. If you've mastered the mug, then this is a great shape for you to practice and see if you can get figured out. I'm going to take a metal rib just to show you how that cleans up, and I will take this tool and bend it to wrap around the piece, and I try to keep this from hitting the bat and the piece. I keep it off of both. I don't want it to catch and make the rib jump, because if the rib jumps, it's going to kick into the clay a little bit on the tip, and I'm just going to destroy the pot again. There we go. I'm going to turn it around. So now that pointed edge that I don't want touching is way up in the air. I'm just going to roll the bottom half of this over that curve. Look how that cleans it up. Okay. Anything else I want to do on this, I really could do in the trimming. I'll touch it one more time. Okay. That's pretty good. All of this will clean up in the trimming. And to trim this, I'm actually going to leave it on the bat. So tomorrow morning when I come out, it'll still be stuck there. I'm not going to wire it. And then I'm just going to trim it right side up. I'm going to trim this a little bit, and I'm going to trim this, and I'm going to trim underneath. And then when it pops free, I will turn it upside down. I'll put it into a chuck, which is just basically clay that's been thrown into this nice shape where I can either use the bowl on the top or the bowl on the bottom. It's kind of that hourglass, but it's open. So this can be turned over and rest into that, and then I can trim the very bottom. And you can see that in another video. All right, I hope that was helpful. This one is really fun. So if you've mastered the mug, I would work on this for a while and see if you can get it down. It'll open doors for you because it's going to improve that ability to control clay and move clay towards the middle. Remember, second finger and thumb. Avoid trying to cup and use your palm and your fingers. Don't do that. Second finger and thumb, because you have greater control to manipulate the clay in. All right. Hey, I hope that was fun for you too.